our baby is a year and a half, so a year and a half now working together, and he's still alive. I'm not in jail. It's great.
So, first of all, Jessica and Ivanhoe, if you want to introduce yourselves, like, who are you?
Who are we? No, as a we are one of Will and Shannon's favorite clients. No, I'm kidding. No, but we are one of your clients, and we consider you some of our friends as well. Ivan and I have been together for now 7 years, almost. Married for 2. Anything else? What did I miss?
What do you do?
Oh, I'm an attorney.
And I'm a financial advisor, currently working also on the firm, a lot of the operations.
Are you well paid?
So
I would say yes, for the matter of the recording. We'll be recording.
yeah, just in turn, since I guess we're starting off, Shannon came with this idea of saying, let's interview other couples that are actively running businesses together and working together in those companies. So why don't you start off telling us about your company?
Where we work together, because Ivan has his own company, but in the firm, so as I mentioned, I'm an attorney. I am a business attorney, so I work with business owners and helping them protect and grow their businesses from a legal standpoint. How we started working together was that last year, or a year and a half ago, I got pregnant, and I was a team of 1, and I went into panic mode because I didn't know what I was going to do once the baby came. Ivan, wanting me to have a little bit more peace during that time of maternity leave, said, look, anything that's not legal, just hand it over to me. That's how it started, and it was supposed to be something very temporary. And then I started noticing that he liked it a little bit too much. And we just worked really well as a team. And so we kind of made it a permanent thing so far. And that's how it all started. And this is where we are now. So our baby is a year and a half. So a year and a half now working together. And he's still alive. I'm not in jail. It's great.
And the firm is not just you two either now.
Yeah, we grew, and I always say this, that's thanks to Ivan. Our firm is now a team of 6, and that's thanks to him. He really is a operations-minded person. He's a numbers guy, and so because of that other half that he kind of fills in for me, we were able to grow at such a fast rate and during a time that it was a little crazy, first year of having a baby.
So I'm thinking about, because our situation of like, who's going to do what, how do you do, obviously you're an attorney, so you have a clear role, but like Ivanhoe said, you have another business that you run. How did you decide, or what was that conversation like to figure out like what areas you were going to get involved in versus like, no, I'm not going to touch that?
Well, I have a financial background. So before even being a financial advisor, I worked in accounting. I worked as a financial manager. I remember the first time that I asked Jess to help her was with the accounting, because I saw the trouble that she was going through, and the books were a mess. And every month it was such a burden on her, and I told her, like, this is ridiculous. Like, I know how to do the books, right? Yeah. So it's like, why don't you let me do that? So that's where I started, and that's kind of how we grew from there. I kind of realized, okay, well, she was pregnant, and I saw that needed more help. Like she said before, what else can I do that is not legal? Because then I would be in prison. But if I can stay at home still and help you, what areas would those be? And sure enough, there's a lot of things that happen in a business that is non-legal. I would say 50% of the things that are happening is not legal. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of things, and we had this unspoken understanding of I'll help you as much as I can in the areas that are non-legal, but always respected, like, you're still in charge. Like, I don't want to take any decision without you being in charge of that decision. So, and it is until now, I'm very involved in the business, but ultimately, I know that she's the owner of the business. She has a license to protect too. So every decision is ultimately hers.
It's also a lot of like he started off by taking off things that I didn't like to do or that I wasn't good at doing, starting with the books. I was never good at doing books. But then it really became just I really trust Ivan and his ability. He's one of the smartest people I know. So I'm lucky to have someone that has that type of brain and skill. So I just let him do his thing because he's better at doing it than me. And so we kind of just know our strengths and our weaknesses, and we kind of balance each other out in that aspect.
So, since you've worked with a lot of business owners, particularly, I'm sure you've come across others that have maybe they are husband wife teams too, but there's definitely a lot, and we've come across a lot where there's like, oh, that could never work or that could never happen, and you have business owners and their spouses are very far removed, and that can cause all kinds of issues too. What would you say has been the most common reason or just observation that you think that doesn't work for a lot of people?
Ego. So full transparency, my parents have worked together for 20 plus years. And I remember my parents telling me, never work with your spouse. And because, I saw firsthand, and I was very wary when he came in because I saw firsthand the issues that caused with my parents and continues. They still work together and sometimes they bring that stuff home. And I just didn't want that to happen with Ivan. But the difference that I've noticed in all the couples that tell me that they haven't been able to work with their couple is just like temperament and ego. Ivan has little ego. I don't want to say no ego, but like little ego about how he operates. Like when he made the decision to come work and we talked about, okay, what happens to your company? And he said, if it's better for us as a couple and as a family for us to grow yours first, I'm okay with that. So there was very little ego about it. In other couples that I've seen, the male doesn't want to take that role. They want to be the main provider, the boss. And so I think that ego part is what kind of keeps it. And also his temperament. Like I fight by myself, I tell you, like in marriage and business, I fight by myself. He does not throw gasoline on the fire. Like if he sees I'm upset, like he doesn't go there. He just kind of chills me down. And so his way of being is so chill that it really makes it very easy for anyone to work with him.
I would say that it was a practical decision, right? Like, okay, at this point, also looking at the businesses, both of the businesses and the stage they were, it was pretty obvious that it was easier to scale, right? So I guess yes, I don't take that doesn't hit my ego, but on the business side, it was clear. It was a clear path to grow her business before I, take again on growing my business. It was going to be a better financial decision at the end of the day. I think part of the success working together is recognizing when I make a mistake or when she makes a mistake, because when you're married and it's different, the relationship and the dynamic is different when there is a mistake in the business, right? Because it could cost sometimes thousands of dollars, and then you have to recognize like, I screwed it up, and I think it goes both ways in the sense of like, oh, you know we made a mistake, and we'll work on it, but we don't get mad at each other just because we made a mistake. There's a lot of grace in when we make decisions that were not the best, and we just have to correct the ship and the path, and just move forward.
Yeah. And you mentioned the with the ego coming up and trying to kind of take control and bringing that stuff home. You mentioned that with your parents. like how do y'all handle that? How do you handle the separation, or is the separation? Because I'm hearing more couples talk about how, well, we just both like love what we do, and we're in it, so we're fine talking about work over dinner, and we're out on vacation or whatever.
Yeah, we have to be it has to be very intentional. So we actually work with a fractional CEO, and she forced us to make a date night every 15 days. And during that date night, we have chosen that we do not talk any business. Because
it is hard.
It is so hard. It's 9:00.
What do you talk about? Like, what do you talk? Because you're in it all the time.
Right?
Yeah. It's really, and especially where we're at our business, that it consumes so much of our lives. It could be 9:00 and it's like, okay, one last thing before I forget. And then we're just like, let's not do that. So since that happens so often, we just choose that one day, those 2 hours that we are not talking about it. But it's very hard. It's very hard. We tried the whole, like, at 7:00, we don't talk business. Sometimes we're still, like, last night we were working till 10.
Yeah.
It's what it is,
It's a constant reminder that we have more things other than work, but there's days that it is what it is, right? And especially us, that we have a home office.
Yeah.
It's hard to shut it down, right?
Mhm.
It's I think it's harder when you work in an office and you have to leave physically your office, then kind of your mind shuts off. It's like, okay, at least it's easier. I'm not saying that it's sometimes you bring it over too, but when you're here 10 steps away from the dining room, it's a little harder.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But I think what I've seen is when you have that expectation, right? Like if you are both working from home and you're both on the same page with things that are needing to be done, so much conflict is caused by a conflict of expectations, right? Just kind of a misalignment there. And so if one spouse is expecting you to stop, I remember that when Shannon was working her corporate sales job. She would bring stuff home because there would be times she was like, all right, it's after 6. Can you shut that down and, join us for dinner or whatever. But then there would be other times that, she was out at something or coming back and following up on phone calls and stuff too. But I think that showed that we both kind of had that tendency. And so when we got on the same team, for lack of a better term, then it didn't bother us as much because we both kind of really intrinsically knew what we were doing and what we were working towards as well, and doing all the stuff.
I mean, I would say because it'll be 2 years.
2 years July.
2 years. The end of this month, basically. And that for me, it was always about trying to find, because our kids are older and much more aware of all the dynamics of trying to still, like, when they're home from school, trying to be present with them until they go to bed. And then if I have to hop back into something once they're in bed, I'll do that. Doesn't always work sometimes. Like I might be like, hold on, let me just send this one more email, or let me just reply to this, or let me, and still kind of trying to struggle with, right, that temptation that it's just a few steps away. They feel that sometimes too, where that was how it was with my other job. I had a work phone that sometimes would not stop till like 8:30 at night. And one of the motivating factors of joining our company was to have a little bit more of that flexibility to be more present when the kids are home, and not to miss all the things that I felt like I was missing because of my previous role was such a high-paced, intense, sales job.
What safeguards have you guys put in place, though, kind of to create that? I don't even want to say balance, because that's such a
that's a fallacy.
Not a thing. But like, what kind of safeguards have you guys put in place to help?
I think we're still figuring that out.
And I think that was one of the reasons why when I told her, I was like, I really, we've been in this for almost 2 years. I still feel like I'm figuring things out, and I would love to talk to other couples who are doing this, because I feel like there's always opportunities to learn from each other about like what's working, what's not working, how have you figured this out, how have you handled this situation. Because I don't think there's just one way of doing things, but there's always opportunities to learn from others and like, oh wow, that's a really great idea, I could totally see us implementing that. So yeah, we are trying to still figure it out. I try to still have some structure, like yes, like it is important to me that we all sit down and have dinner together.
Yeah. So I was about to say, like, that's when
Yes.
dinner's on the table, we're all around the dinner table.
Yes.
And I generally don't schedule anything after 5, but there might be an event every once in a while or something like that.
Right.
But most nights.
Or if like the kids have extracurriculars in the evenings,
Right.
where I'll be taking them, so he'll be home, so then he'll work on extra stuff, or maybe he'll take a late call then because we'll be out of the house, so it's not taking away from that family time.
Yeah.
That's something that we have tried to do, and something that we've tried to do is, and unfortunately this year it's kind of been like a bust, but we're hoping to reset, is once a quarter having a weekend away with just us. The kids will be up to one of the grandparents, and we have a weekend. Which
Usually
just
a
the
long
two of us-
weekend.
A long
Right,
week,
like a
a
3-day
Friday
weekend.
through Sunday. And it was hard because now the kids are older, we're more comfortable, leaving them for that period of time. But usually it's like my birthday's in December, his is in February, our anniversary's in May, and then we usually go to a conference in August. So we hit every quarter to have that time together.
So over 3 days, there's usually enough time to not talk about it.
I was gonna ask, do you talk about work during those days?
Well,
But still some, like even when we went on our anniversary, last year was 20 years.
Yeah.
And
I remember.
we took a big cruise, and but even during the cruise, we had some time planned out for work.
Yeah.
And I tried to tell my CPA that made it a business expense, but he didn't.
Did it work? It didn't work out. Yeah. I see the thing is we haven't been taking a lot of non-work trips. Usually when we're traveling, as you know, it's to a conference or something work related. And so the few trips, I think the last one was December, that we took 3 days to a cruise. I sort of had to threaten his bodily safety with like, don't you dare talk to me about work during these 3 days. We were talking about
It's not that high.
I couldn't. I needed those 3 days to cut off. And before Ivan and I worked together, Ivan was that place for me, right? So like we would go out and I knew we weren't be talking about business, but now that we work together, our dynamic and our topic of conversation has changed so much towards work that I have to tell him to shut it off, because if he doesn't shut it off, I can't shut it off. Like if I see him checking emails, that annoys me, even if I'm not the one checking emails, because I want us to do couple stuff that's not work, so I have to sometimes be really, really, really direct and say, turn it off. We're not doing work today or this weekend or on this trip. And I don't know how he feels about that, but
no, it's fine. We are more and more intentionally planning those days, right? Like we have next week, we have a long weekend at the beach, and we are preparing the schedule and giving some tasks to the staff so that we can have that time away and try to be out of the office completely. And at the end of the day, those days also ultimately help the growth of the business, because kind of reset, and then you come back with a fresh mind and ready to tackle more. The key is to be intentional of planning those days, because the regular day, the day to day, sometimes we stop working or talking about the business at 6 p.m. and then some other days there's 10 p.m. days.
Because it's been a year and a half that you guys have been working together. What are some of the milestones or the achievements that you've been able to accomplish since you guys have like come together and like basically joined forces?
Oh, well, I mean, growing the firm. Like I said, we went from a team of one to eventually a team of eight. What else?
It was there. There was a season in the business that we were so into the business, and like we hired 3 people within 4 months, and we haven't even realized that we had grown.
Yeah,
Because we're so into the business. But yeah, definitely having staff is a
the
great
biggest.
milestone. We've been in coaching programs for the last 2 years, and we could see the professional development that we have been going through. I think that's a huge milestone.
Yeah.
I tell Jessica, sometimes we on our conversations, the ones that we try to not talk about work, but it turns out to be from it goes back to the work. But
Mhm.
we're trying to come up with things that were different from 2 years ago. This was a conversation that we had like
Date night. That was a date night.
yeah, like a month ago or 2 months ago. And what I told her is just like 2 years ago, I used to talk about business thinking that I knew business. And
Yeah.
I feel so, I wouldn't say ashamed or embarrassed, but that Ivan 2 years ago, like he didn't
Yeah,
know
it
what
hurts.
he didn't know what he was talking about. It was very different from what it is now, from what we have learned and growth.
Yeah.
It's huge. I mean, we're a so different level than what we were. So talking about those milestones for me is the mindset
Yeah.
is just totally different.
And we
Have you
both
read
have.
the
Sorry, go
Have
ahead.
you read The Gap in the Game?
The what?
The Gap in the Game. It's
No.
by Ben Hardy. So I recommend that we both read it. The main concept in there is people measure themselves in the gap between where they are right now and their ideals, or they can measure themselves in the game from where they are right now and where they started. Right. And so when you look back, it's much more edifying, and you feel much better about the progress that you've made. And ultimately the point that you're trying to get across is you're on your own journey, right? And that ideal is helpful in kind of giving direction, but it's like the horizon. The closer you get to it, the further it moves away. Like it's always going to be moving. And I know that's been one of our frustrations too, right? We can sit and like you get in this situation is like why aren't things growing, or why aren't we doing better, or why aren't we making more money, or why don't we feel more successful? And then it's like, oh, that's right, because we're still as far away from the potential future that we can see as we were. But then when we look backwards, over these last 2 years, the amount of growth, personally, financially, in the business, everything has been very significant. And so I think it's a really good concept to go through. It's a quick read. You can probably read the
Awesome.
first 2 chapters.
How
It's a
long?
very short book.
How often do you guys do that? Because one thing that I think we don't do enough is look back. That was very intentional that day. I had that in my mind and I really wanted to have that conversation. But I feel like sometimes we get into the weeds so much of running the business, being in the business, that and just getting through the month, making payroll, paying everything, that you don't take a second to look at like the
Sure.
wins,
Oh yeah.
and you know we try to do that. I mean, with our coach, we meet with her that's how she starts her meeting, like, what's your win? And sometimes I'll just say something, but I really do wish that we would take more time to look back to where we were and how much we've grown, because it's significant. It's very
Yeah.
significant.
It's the same situation here. It's like you said, it's very easy to get stuck in the day-to-day stuff,
Mhm.
that you get so sucked into it that you're like, you don't feel like you've made any progress, or that you feel like you're dealing with the same issues. And for me, it's very easy for me to kind of like spiral sometimes, because he's been doing this a lot longer than I have. So there's this still of like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Like, what am I doing? This is insanity. But
It's all going
then,
to go away tomorrow.
right,
It's
like
like
we're gonna,
everybody.
Right. I mean, like, I tell them, it's like, if you could only hear, like, the stories that my brain can come up with, of, like, we're going to be sleeping in our car. Like, I mean, like, my brain is my own worst enemy. But then if I stop, I'm like, okay, wait a second. Like, there's ebbs and flows. We've had a dip before. We always came back. Like, here's the journey. It's not this linear, path. And, like, looking back and looking at all the progress and everything that we've experienced before, if I can, like, take a step back and like speak truth, like what is real, what is true, versus what my brain is like focusing on, then I'm like, okay, no, like we're good, like we're okay, like this is normal. And same, we have a coach too, and she's an absolute badass. She has no problems just being very direct with me. And it also helpful to hear, like, this is normal.
Yeah.
Like, this is normal for businesses. This is normal. It's like, okay, it's not just us. Like, this is not some weird, odd, event. Like, this is a normal situation. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I'm very much like you, Shannon. And I don't know if you feel this way sometimes, but I get very stressed and in my feelings about, like, whatever the situation may be that week or that month, like if it's a hard month. And I naturally go talk to Ivan about it. And sometimes I feel like, oh my God, like, am I creating a bad dynamic by, like, always bringing up, like, not bad, like stresses, right? Rather than just, I don't know, like so often. And it's because of that dynamic of we're working together. He understands what I'm going through because he knows. But I always wonder, like, is it too much? Like, is it going to create a problem in the future? I don't know if that ever goes through your mind.
Yes, and I've shared with Will that there are times where, like, I'm struggling with something and I won't talk to him about it because I know he's already aware of it.
Yeah.
And I am much more outwardly emote. He is much more internally emotes.
Mm-hmm.
So I outwardly will be freaking out.
Yes.
He's inwardly freaking out. So then if I add to that, then he's already, it's like, I'm gonna pour it onto him, and now he's gonna erupt too, which is not helpful. So yes, there are things where, like, I won't talk to him about certain things because I know he already knows.
Yeah.
It's not that you won't talk. It's like
Well,
there's not a there's a balance there. Like the
I don't want to
the
come
freak
to
out,
right. So
everything like that can be difficult.
I try
at
not
times
right. So there's times I'll be like really
deal with.
stressed, and I won't, like, I might just go in the shower and cry. Because I'm like, it's not me putting this out on somebody else is not going to do anybody else any good.
Mm-hmm.
They can't, it's not going to change the situation.
Yeah.
So, and then once I can kind of get into a more rational state, then I can have a conversation. But if I'm like, same thing, if I'm super in my feels,
yeah,
I just got to work through it.
Because as stereotypical as it is, there's always like a nugget of truth there. Because like at the end of the day, if she's coming to me freaking me out, or just freaking out in general, like what is the problem? Let me go kill it, right? And I know that's not always the helpful thing, right? We're not always supposed to be solving the problem, but like when it is us and we're both like, this is also my problem. I will solve the problem.
Have you seen the clip of the nail in the head?
Oh yes, you saw that at church,
right?
So perfect.
One of the pastors brought it up at church, and I showed it in another in a class, at a jobs training class I was volunteering to teach, and it's just it is perfect, perfect little spoof. But it's not about the nail. If anybody wants to look that up. But,
yes, it's such a great one, and we laughed so hard because around that time we were reading Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. We used to have this tradition. We would go to the beach and we would read a book together. And so that was the book that we were reading together at that time. And so during that book, we would stop after each example well, or I would stop and be like, is that how you feel? It's like, a little bit. I'm like, really? And so when then the nail on the head came out, and I was like, oh my God, it's a thing. And he's definitely a fixer, just like you will. Like if I tell him a problem, he's like, well, I can fix it. This is how we fix it. And Shannon, I know sometimes it's just like you just wanted to tell you our problem. We don't necessarily need you to do anything.
Right. I just want to be seen. I just want to be heard and understood.
Yeah. So
And it's a perfect example of, sometimes you don't have to understand something to be able to deal with it in a productive manner either.
yeah.
Yeah.
I am interested. What did you talk about on like date nights before?
I missed those date nights. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, but not just because we now work in the business. It's because we didn't have a baby, so life was a little bit more relaxed. It was different.
Not only that, I think
I don't want to put everything in the business.
No. But the thing is also, I mean, and it doesn't compare to being together 20 years, but for 7 years we were having very deep conversations. So I don't want to say there's not a lot of things that we don't know about each other, but sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to come up with topics. Before it would be, all sorts of things, and we would talk for hours and endless things. But what would we talk about? Let's see.
Well, there's at least I like to bring up intentionally things that I hear or read that takes me away from talking business, even though it might be business related sometimes, not all the times, but it's not our business. It's not like what we have to do tomorrow, But yeah, I like to bring topics of what I read, what I listen to. We talk about church. So instead of trying to fix the business, we try to fix the church.
Will, I just want to let you know that every time that the slide person is not on time, you pop into my brain and I'm laughing in the middle of church. It was actually
Did you get that?
I sent her that meme. The one person who ruins worship.
Okay.
That was
lady with the bad tambourine. It's not the off key.
Because I had sent you something too about that.
It's the PowerPoint guy not moving the slide.
And that was actually Ivanhoe Sanchez last week. So I was like, I'm gonna have to notify Will.
Yeah, so the whole thing. I was like, Will be going nuts right now because Ivanhoe didn't do his job.
Yeah, but
the greatest, as annoying as it still is, the greatest practice in grace is to go and do it yourself once, and then you realize, like,
yeah,
right, yes.
It was like you're sitting there. It's like, how hard is it just to click the button?
No,
like,
did you get the one that I sent you where it was like the Star Wars?
Yes.
And that's how it should be on the teleprompter for worship music. It should just roll out like Star Wars.
It's anything.
Yeah, I used to be that person, so I know. That's why I'm giving them a hard time, but it really is more difficult and very easily to get distracted. But back to your topic about what we used to talk about. I mean, Ivan's very much about like learning, like he mentioned. So he loves to talk about all the podcasts he listens to and loves it. For me, I'm very much about like I kind of want to get to know you deeper and how you think and what would you do. So I remember like we would have conversations about like, what do you think that you took from your parents' relationship and brought to our marriage? What do you think we brought from mine? What did you feel like you left behind? What would you like to add to our relationship? Like those kinds of things are topics that I love to talk about.
Yeah, and I guess one good habit that we have where we can pick up again is just reading couples books, because that gives you a lot of material to discover and questions to ask, and how do you feel about this when you read that?
I'm impressed y'all can have those conversations outside of 15 years of marriage counseling.
I know.
I'm like, yeah, we've had those conversations. They've always been facilitated.
Yeah, I was gonna say with it there. Well, that's a whole nother podcast there.
But do you get surprised? Because I'll tell you, we used to host a couples group, right? And we would have a specific topic and questions on the group. And every single time we would host that group, after, I would be shocked by his answers. And this is someone that I thought I would know how he would respond to certain things, and it would be something completely different every time. And same thing when we would go to church life groups, he would always say something that would surprise me. And so for me, like I loved date night because I would get to know him deeper. He's not someone that's easily vulnerable, so I have to pick at it. I have to ask the right questions for him to answer. If not, those things are not going to come out. So that's what I like to focus on during date night.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the vision. So now, what was your vision before this decision, Jessica, with the firm? I know you went out and you started your firm on your own. To, like so many people have
Yeah.
more of the freedom from certain things. But what was your vision before it got started, and has it changed since?
Oh, has it changed? So before I got started, well, to be completely transparent, I don't think I was a person that said, I am for sure going to be a business owner one day. Like, that wasn't my mentality. I really do think that I did it out of circumstance. And, when I started, my mind was, I want to keep it small. I'm going to be the attorney, and, I'll maybe have an assistant, and it's going to be quick, efficient, it's going to make money. And then I realized it's not that simple. It's not that simple. I couldn't do it all, and I needed to grow. And with growth, every layer gets more complex. So I think I had a very naive idea or goal back when I first opened that really isn't realistic for the life I want. We talked about having another baby, and if I would have kept that life, I wouldn't have had another maternity leave, just like I had with other baby. I had no maternity leave. So yes, the goal has changed. The vision has changed. Now, back then it was also about being not standing out, right? I'm a woman in a man's world in the legal industry, right? And so I kind of did things the traditional way. I wore the suit. My old website was very traditional. The colors were traditional. And now we've kind of built a mission to break stereotypes of law firms and traditional law firms. And so we're going the other route. We went left. And so, yeah, the vision has completely changed. Now we want to stand out for good things, and really putting our beliefs and our faith at the center of it, which what it wasn't before. Um, we are very forward about our Christian beliefs, and those are very instilled and at the center of our mission right now.
So, how big is it going to be in 5 years?
As big as it needs to be. I don't think that there is a number. I think it's what is we have our financial goals that we have to reach, right? And those change every quarter, I feel. Like every time we reach them, it's like I don't want to say it's not enough, but we need to do something different, and it requires more people and it requires more funds. So I can't tell you what a number is, but as big as it needs to be to serve the people that we need to serve.
Yeah, I remember when I would say what, 4 years ago, it wasn't that long ago, and we both were talking about, we're good. Like, I don't want to have a big firm. I don't want to have, financial advisors under me. Like, I'm good. Like, I like this. I like to do this. I can make a difference here.
Mm-hmm.
And now, we realize how much more impact in the community we can do as we grow. And that's something, some of those little things or big things that we have been realizing in the growth, what we're experiencing. We love to give back, and we can see, okay, the more that we grow, the more that we can give back.
Yeah.
And that is a big incentive for us to keep growing. Of course, we're going to be better off financially, but there's a great satisfaction on knowing that is more than just the business. And that is something very, very different from the vision that we that we had some years ago.
Yeah.
In all of this change and things changing from quarter to quarter and different perspectives and all this experience, like before you had kind of an understanding,
Mm-hmm.
right? But now like
Mhm.
experientially. So what would you say has for each of you has been the biggest thing you've learned about running a business in general, and not even just as a couple, but just what was the biggest revelation?
I'm tempted to say the hiring, but I know there's other things, but a big one, and the one that's coming to my brain right now, is hiring. Like, you need to hire if you want to, you know, have the business working for you. Things happen. For me, it was having a baby was something positive, but if I would have had a heart attack or if I would have had some kind of accident, you know, what was going to happen? What was going to happen with our income? So having employees or having a team that can continue to run the business without you or without a lot of input from you um, is key. And before I didn't see that. I thought that I had to be there. And now I see that I'm the bottleneck. I need to get out of there. But I'm still I want to be able to push the vision because that's important to me to push the core values, but hiring a team that also buys into your culture, that's huge. And so having that right team for me, has been the biggest learning point.
Well, one thing that I can say is it sounds like a cliche, but coaching is so important.
Yeah.
And when I was some years ago, I was like, coaching, like that's such a waste of time and money. Like,
Hmm.
and but what we have been experiencing is that the more coaching that we have, the faster that we grow, the less mistakes that we make, or maybe we make the same amount of mistakes but they're less costly to the business. There's a lot of understanding of the numbers.
Yeah.
Reading financially your business is, look, I have a financial background, but it was never my business, right? So it's different when you read the statements for someone else. It's like, well, you have to do this in order to improve your inventory. It's clear here that you have too much inventory, but then that's all. That was my part when I read financial statements. Like, I just have to tell you, this is what's going wrong, and it's on you if you want to fix it. Now when you're in the business, you have to fix it, right? It's not just
And all the other considerations that are going through your
Right.
mind, whether they're valid or not, right?
Right.
So I would say, yeah, two things. Coaching is very important. In the early stages, as soon as you can, and then knowing your numbers is important. Every aspect, even the simple things. You don't have to be an expert in finance, but knowing your P&L, your balance sheet, your cash flow, those three things
Yeah.
go such a long way when you're running the business, and it can give you a lot of insights. And if you do it well, you would be able to shift and pivot. Is that how you say it?
Pivot.
Pivot, fast enough or with enough time to not, sink the ship.
As a married couple who is in business together, what advice would you give other married couples who are considering going into business together?
You go first.
Well, at least in our case with the law firm, we are able to work together well because the we know the boundaries. Like I said at the beginning, um, she's the boss, and I understand that very well. And when we are not in the same page about a decision that it has to be made, she has a final decision, and I'm completely 100% okay, to the point to 100% support that decision. It's not only like, okay, well, that's what you think, so let's go that way, and then turn around and try to sabotage it. It's more of a, okay, so yeah, that's you're the boss, and if we can discuss it, all the pros and cons, and we're still not in the same page, and we have to take in one direction, I am aware that that's the direction that we're going, even though if it's not the one that I would take, I would support 100% that decision. And then if we have to make another change, then we make it.
I feel like my advice is not going to be probably what you're looking for, but it would be know know your dynamic, and if it doesn't work, then don't do it. Maybe give it a test run, because it isn't for everybody. I mean, the majority of couples don't like working together, or even are very honest about, they say that they wouldn't want to work with their couple. So each couple knows, their dynamic, the temperament of the other, and give it a test run. But if it doesn't work, don't be afraid to be honest with each other and say, look, I don't think this is a good fit for us. I think it's going to negatively affect our relationship, and I think we should kind of go back to how we used to do things.
Does that ever make you wonder, like, how, like, what's their marriage dynamic, like, in general? Like, if you can't, like, how this is just a
no. I love the question. If you're saying,
I think the same thing is, like, you need to know that, like, ideally you should know that going into your marriage, right? And I mean, that's been a hard fought lesson
so you don't know any couples that probably shouldn't be together, but they're making it work and maybe shouldn't go into business together.
yeah. I mean, you could say that, like, I would definitely say that, like, your marriage has to be very strong as a foundation first, because you're definitely not going to be able to build a business on top of that.
Yeah. Well, yes.
So
there's so many comments when we say we work together, and they're like, oof,
that's usually the most common reaction.
How do you do that? Like, I can't stand 8 hours, in an office with my partner, with my wife or husband. But like Jessica said, like, understand the dynamic between the two of us. And I can't say about any day that I don't enjoy being with her, because for me, I'm working with her, but it's just the fact that she's here right beside me, and we have come sometimes we think in detriment of the business. We are like, we have to go together to this meeting, we have to go together to this conference, we have to be like, sometimes like, where are you? Like, you're supposed to be in this meeting, and I'm thinking, like, you can handle that meeting alone, but I would love to be there to support you. And I never feel that I don't want to be with Jess. So, I think it's a big part of, wanting to be with the person that you love for such a long, well, in our case, it's every day, 24/7, like, pretty much. We separate maybe 2 hours a day.
and I will tell you, I know we're running out of time, but even on days that we work together all day, we will go to bed and be like, I feel like I haven't talked to you today. How was your day? And we've been in the same household, working on the same business, but that to us is not quality time. We were working, we were doing our own thing, and we still go to bed and we're like, how was your day? Was it productive? Like, how did you feel today? And I think that's a reflection of the marriage. I agree with you, Will. So
I'm sure we could continue talking about this. Maybe we will one day.
Over dinner.
We are very grateful for just you both in general as people, and for giving us the time today. We can come and have this, and hopefully it is helpful to some other folks to hear. Maybe they're not. I guess my big desire of this is what Shannon was saying earlier, that we often get in this situation, you don't know anybody else that may necessarily be in the situation, and you run into stuff and you're like, am I crazy? Like, is this the way it's supposed to be done? And is this normal amongst our peers, right? But it's so hard to be connected to.
Because I feel like, and I've had this conversation with other people, where running a business can be very isolating because not a lot of people do it. And so a lot of people don't understand. But I think this is a whole nother level of like, okay, now I'm not only running a business, but I'm running a business with my spouse,
Yeah.
which is even a smaller demographic. And like being able to connect with other people who's like, this is normal, or like, yes, this is normal, or this is how we get through it. And like, you're feeling like you're not completely alone in this very unique and challenging at times situation, because running a business is hard. You know, it's fulfilling, it's hard. Marriage is fulfilling, it's hard. And now you can combine the two together.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, let's say super filled.
Yes. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you,
This
guys.
was fun, you guys. Thank you so much for having us.